That's right.
sucked a little bit. Not the book, just not meeting the expectations, to be clear. Happy New Comic Book Day, geeks, and welcome to issue 30 of the Script Heroes podcast.
The show where we bring you comic news, book reviews, and industry blues. My name is Joseph Jasonowski, and I am the writer of Gender Hero, Cunning Carly, and the Cryptoverse.
And I'm Katie Markham, scripter of the Rusty Robot Country Club and ghostwriter extraordinaire. We have some rad pulls today, a bunch of new number ones, some good indie books.
Yep.
We've got Cult of the Lamb, number 1, Mammoth, number 1, Falling in Love on the Path to Hell, number 1, and Boy Wonder, number 2.
That is right, and if you enjoy this episode, you can follow the pod on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, all at the handle Script Heroes Pod, or you can find my personal socials at JJAZ1111.
And I'm on all socials at Katie Markham Pro.
And now, on to the news. Okay, so to start off, a little bit of news for this week, we're going to start with a warning last call for the Museum of the Uncanny Anthology, which, as we're recording this, is a little under a week from ending, but when this goes up, it'll be 2 days until it ends on the 14th of June, 2024, at midnight. In case somebody's watching this in 2025, you very much missed the mark.
Midnight Eastern time in the United States.
Yes. Good call. So, get your submission done by that time, otherwise you will be missing out on that opportunity. But to move into more newsy news for the week, I don't know if that made sense. We're going to be talking about some news for a book that we've talked about on the podcast before, made from somebody who we have spoken to on the podcast before. We're going to be
did In Hell We Fight get renewed?
No. We're gonna know about this. We've already talked about this, so you should know what we're about to talk about. We're gonna be talking about Death Comes for the Toymaker, finding a new home finally after the whole Scout comic situation. It obviously got pulled out from Scout by writer Dakota Brown and artist Ryan Cody. We talked to Dakota Brown about the book on this podcast. I will link that video if you want to go check it out. But the first issue had been released from Scout, but part of their, I don't remember what the hell they call it, non-stop program, they were going to do the first issue, and then the graphic novel with the whole story. First issue happened, graphic novel never happened. Graphic novel is now happening through Magma Comics, a fairly new publisher that seems to be really cranking out content, or issues and series, because I feel like I see a new Magma Comics announcement pretty frequently. But yeah, you will have that coming in November 6th and 7th, 2024. I don't know why there's two different release dates, but
maybe it's at midnight.
And maybe it is. And then in bookstores on November 19th. So
astounded.
We've gotten
just in time for Christmas
of reading the whole book. Yeah, very well
perfect.
Timed. We've gotten the pleasure of reading the whole book ahead of time. And I think we both enjoyed it a ton. It's
sure did.
One of the more unique books I've read in a long time, I feel like I have to say. So definitely would be a
pull list
recommendation from me. Yeah.
So big congratulations to Dakota and his team. Way to go, gang. I'm just so glad that this is finding a new home.
Absolutely. And to pivot into some news from people who we haven't talked about yet. We've talked about the book on the podcast. We've not talked to these people yet, but we will hopefully be talking to them soon on the podcast. We have some news from the team behind Petrolhead, Rob Williams and Pi Parr, which is that Petrolhead has been optioned for a movie. Which is incredibly cool.
Insane.
And hopefully will mean that the comic book continues. One would hope that.
One would hope. Yeah, they just had their TPB come out last week, I think, and
perfect timing.
Gosh, such an amazing series.
Such an amazing series. I think we covered all the issues. Recent... way back to the beginning, first episode of the podcast.
Yeah. Actually, issue 0 of the podcast.
Issue 0 of the podcast is when we covered issue 1.
And I think that we spent like 45 minutes talking about issue 1.
Yeah, a long time. It was like it was the only poll we had that week, so it was a solid chunk of the episode.
Luckily, I was gonna say we've gotten more concise with our discussions, but only kind of.
Only kind of.
Only kind of.
So it has been optioned for film by Lee Brazier of Mr. B Films, which I am not overly familiar with, but basically, with some more details here, they're going to be working with Janice Fiddler and Blondell Adu of Rabbit Hole Studios to adapt Petrolhead. And Rabbit Hole Studios is the VFX producers on X-Men Days of Future Past and co-producers on Atlas and Red Notice. And Days of Future Past is one of my personal favorite superhero films, so that is a good little chunk of information there. Also, if anybody listening to this is French or speaks French, there's going to be a Petrolhead French version coming out soon for France.
Rad.
So, yeah, nice little thing there. So, there's big news for Petrolhead.
That is huge. That is so great.
Yeah.
I am a little bummed because you told me about this a couple days ago when we were hanging out, and my immediate thought after was, it would be so cool as an animated show or an animated movie, and it sounds like it's gonna be a live action movie. Yeah.
My assumption would be that they'll try to capture the Transformers big film market, and the idea of doing
that tracks.
Yeah, makes sense. I'm just hoping that assume they got some sort of a check for this. Hopefully that check goes into finishing the series. That would be very nice.
We love Petrolhead, and we definitely want
absolutely
more. Well, phenomenal. I am very excited because we love Volume 1 of Petrolhead, but I have trouble imagining just Volume 1 transforming into a full movie on its own.
No, it's got a cliffhanger. I feel like you need
exactly. It's got a wonderful cliffhanger ending.
Yeah,
so
you'd hope that they'd coincide doing a second volume, getting the movie produced based on, and then
I would hope that they do the second volume first. Movies take so long to make.
I meant do the second volume while the movie's being made, so they can have the second volume to base the movie off of.
Yeah, God, that's so thrilling. I'm so hyped for this.
Yes, it is very exciting. I would love a Petrolhead film, so hopefully this makes it all the way through. The fact that there are already names attached and VFX people attached seems like a good sign, versus when you just see X Studio has optioned this thing and then maybe nothing happens for 5 years. This seems a little bit more solid. Obviously, there's no guarantees when it comes to optioning projects, but it seems like there's at least somewhat of a plan here. So that makes me very excited.
No, that's so thrilling. I really hope that it's super stylized, because one of the rad things about Petrolhead is how distinct it is and how it feels on the page.
Yes. I mean, the
race
is
going to be very weird.
So good, those
certainly,
races so well. Petrolhead's design feels so good for a bulky figure in a film. I like it.
I have been struck by the thought of my mental voice of Petrolhead. Very robotic. Not British. I am aware that the Petrolhead team is British.
Yes.
And obviously Satnav is incredibly Cockney British, but I'm suddenly just oh god. It's gonna be John Oliver voicing Dave. So get ready for British robots.
Hit me with your Petrolhead fan casting right now.
Oh man, I mean, it's such a weird one because he would obviously have to be in a suit. So we're talking more so someone who I feel
probably
would
motion
fit the
capture
voice
more than a suit. Yeah, we're talking probably more about voice.
No, clearly they're gonna just do what Doom Patrol did and have a hulking man in a suit and then a famous actor voice dub over him.
They can do that.
Oh geez. Okay. Petrolhead himself. He has to be gruff. He has to be kind of. We want some robot in there. We don't want someone who's too terribly emotive. I feel like the go-to. Everyone's always oh yeah, fictional dad going on journey is Pedro Pascal and Hugh
Don't
Jackman.
don't.
But I don't want
Pedro
either
Pascal
one of them.
in this.
Exactly. That's what I was
would
gonna say.
hate
That's
Hugh
my
Jackman.
fear.
He would be my first choice, but I wouldn't hate Hugh Jackman. I would
Isn't
not
he
be
British?
super happy
No, he's
with
Australian. I was like, he might
but I
already
wouldn't
have
be
the
super
accent.
happy. I would not be super happy
No,
with Pedro Pascal.
I would not either. Especially because I think he's so good at
You might be shooting very like A-list for what this movie's most likely gonna do, but
I'm not gonna lie, I was mostly stalling as I tried to come up with a good answer.
That's fair. That's fair.
But then I got distracted defending myself.
That tracks.
The thing is, I don't know why this man keeps coming back to my mind. I think it's because in my heart of hearts, I never stopped being a Gilmore Girls girly. I want the man who plays Luke on Gilmore Girls. He's got like, I feel like the right kind of stoic but exasperated vibe. And I'm like, you know what? If it's just because he's ancient now, not actually ancient. He was probably like 40 in 2007. Oh God. So he is ancient. But like, if it's just voice work, it could still work.
Yeah.
That's my left field fan casting for Petrolhead. He's also not British. Who's yours?
Yeah. I feel like during that conversation, for whatever reason, I have landed on Dave Bautista as my fan casting. Because I feel like he could do that like gruff voice very well. And his Army of the Dead role is kind of like that like kind of a like journeying kind of dad vibe, and I feel like that's kind of a Petrolhead vibe. So yeah, that's what I've landed on. The first name that came to mind was Sylvester Stallone, but I was like, that seems like
talking about ancient.
It's a voice. It's a voice.
No, but I think that my like actual fan casting, as opposed to my like left field, why can't I get this out of my head fan casting, would be David Harbour, Hellboy, and the Stranger Things guy.
Yeah,
because he's also very much become that dad figure from Stranger Things. And he's got that like good gruff kind of dad energy. I like that what we're going for with this is dad energy.
Now I'm thinking like, I think the freaking I can't think of the actor's name. The guy who plays John Kreese in Cobra Kai. Like, yeah.
But now, more important to me, though this is gonna sound super hypocritical because I am completely blanking on his name. Hybrid, that's his name. Who would you want to play Hybrid? I feel like he's more fun to
Ryan Reynolds.
No, please. He's a fine man. He's just so much in everything that he's in.
He is so much. But Hybrid's one of the few roles, because he plays the same character, but Hybrid is like one of those characters that could be that.
See, I don't want him to be reduced to just a Ryan Reynolds character.
That's fair.
But Hybrid's also much closer to human, so he would probably have like an actual person going on.
I don't know if they're gonna go like Transformers. I could see like all the robots being CGI. It depends on like the size too. You know, because I feel like they're pretty damn tall, which is going to be like the main thing. Like they could always do a film them on different sets and then scale them up. But
I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna say that with a lot of the emotional heart of Petrolhead coming from the relationship between Petrolhead and Lupa, I think they're gonna do a costume. I think they're gonna do a practical Petrolhead.
I don't know the last movie that has done practical costumes.
I think they're gonna do it.
Like you know, even like the like.
Like even if it's not like the whole costume, I think that they're going to have them be essentially human size, like a little bigger than human size.
I don't think that I think, like I said, I think it's gonna be more Transformers-esque, but we will see.
We'll see, and we're both so excited.
Yes, very excited. The fan casting has definitely helped us stretch this segment out because, of course, we couldn't have a short segment. But would you like to get into the polls for the week, which unfortunately will not include Petrolhead because an issue hasn't come out in a little while, but hopefully.
But the TPB came out last week, or 2 weeks ago when this goes up. So if you haven't read it, go read it. We recommended it literally every week that we read it on the podcast.
It's fantastic. It's so good.
Let's go. All right, gang, we got 4 polls coming up this week. We've got Cult of the Lamb, number 1. We've got Falling in Love on the Way to Hell, number 1. We've got The Mammoth, number 1. And we've got The Boy Wonder, number 2. But
you're coming out here with alternate cover.
Am I? Oh yeah, because I also got the alternate one for number 1. I like the ones that have the Bat Boys on them.
That's
like
fair.
I love it when there's like a cohesive variant strain.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, yes, these are variant covers, but they like all go together as well. That's my kind of variant. But that's of course not all we picked up this week, Jay Bird.
Right.
Week 1 is thick for me. Is week 1 thick for you?
Not nearly as thick as next week's gonna be.
Oh boy.
Next week's gonna be wild for me. But I've got TMNT Alpha number 1. Got Wolverine Blood Hunt number 1, the Kevin Eastman variant, because, of course.
You gotta.
I got this from Keenspot because I thought it looked cool. It's called Robot Plus Girl. I don't think it actually came out this week. Maybe it did. But I saw it and I picked it up. Because I was like, that seems like it could be fun. And then I got the TMNT Sourcebook issue 3.
Sweet. Well, I also got TMNT Alpha number 1. I think it's because I told my guy that I was going to start pulling the new TMNT series, and he's like, here you go. Got the Infernals number 4.
Got the Infernals number 4 already, huh?
Number 4 already, man. Crashdown number 4. Batman 148. Batman and Scooby-Doo Mysteries number 6. Bear Pirate Viking Queen number 2. And Beyond the Pale number 1. Beyond the Pale. We talked about doing that one, and then we were both like, I don't know that this is my vibe of book. But then I saw it and I flipped through it, and I was like, I'm gonna read number 1.
That's
I'm just
very
a sucker.
fair.
Once I open a book, I'm gonna fucking read it.
That was how I felt with Robot Plus Girl. I was like, let me start flipping through this, and I was like, I'm gonna grab it now. But I think we have another week of all different publishers, which
we sure do.
Will make it fairly, simple to not have to pair anything up here. So, do you have a particular order that you're feeling?
I don't. Do you?
Okay.
I will say, I think Boy Wonder should go either first or last, since it's not the new number 1.
First. And then I'm gonna say maybe just what I have on the dock. Go the Mammoth, then Cult of the Lamb, and then Falling in Love on the Path to Hell.
Works for me.
Okay, cool. As always, time codes in the description. There should be chapters, so you can click to whatever reviews you want to see, or preferably watch them all, because we are entertaining people, I hope. But do you want to talk about the Boy Wonder number 2?
Let's talk about the Boy Wonder. The Boy Wonder number 2. Jason Todd takes center stage in Juniba's DC Black Label masterwork. Jason Todd is the exiled prince of Batman's kingdom, stalking Gotham's darkest alleys and eternally turning his face from the light of day, all because he cannot quench the burning flame of anger and retribution that consumes his heart. Can Damian learn from Jason's mistakes, or is the reflective mask of Red Hood doomed to be a mirror held up to his own future? The writer-artist here is Juniba of Monkey Meat, Jayla, and TMNT. The colorist is Chris O'Halloran, and the letterer is Adita Bidikar. Jay, we were jazzed about this book when we first heard about it.
Jazzed on issue 1. Yeah.
And when we read issue 1, I think we were also pretty. It lived up to our expectations pretty much. I think.
Yes. Yeah. One of the things we said though was that the plot didn't feel like it moved forward a ton.
Yeah.
And this, I think, had an even worse problem of that, because it didn't even feel like there was a full arc to the individual issue compared to issue 1. Like issue 1, and like the whole concept was Damian like learning things from each of the Robins, and I didn't think he really learned anything here, or any of the characters did anything here. I'm so enthusiastic about Juniba's style. I really like the style of the captions and like making
like
it
the
this
fairy tale allegory.
Yeah, fairy tale-esque stuff is really cool. But yeah, we just kind of landed on how a lot of Jason stories go, which is like, I'm an angry boy, and this is, a Joker beat me up, and that's me, and I was brought back to life. And then, like, I think there's an issue here because neither Damian nor Jason in their characterizations in this book can really be the one to reach out to the other. So we kind of have the situation where it's like, well, they're kind of together because the book put them together, but also instead of just doing something that would have made more sense, like having them investigate the same thing, we had Damien like go to Jason and yet still not really be like a full-blown recruiting. It felt a little off to me. And also, Junie Ba draws Jason as like the scrawniest little lad I've ever seen in my life.
Right?
Which made him look like a bobblehead with the big red hood helmet. And that was a little odd too.
I will say, to hit on a couple of your points there, I think the reason that this issue specifically didn't work for me is because the concept of this series is, like you said, that Damien is learning from the other Robins. And in the setup to this, it seemed like it was going to be super cool because it's like they painted Jason as the hunter. And it's like, oh, that's actually super rad. And I love that characterization of Jason being like, here's something that can be his thing without his thing being just murder.
Yeah.
And they did not lean into that at all.
No.
And also, it felt more like Jason learned from Damien than Damien learning from Jason. Like in issue 1, we got that really cute ending where Damien took the lesson that Dick gave him and then applied it to just like a random person on the street. And in this one, it felt like Damien taught Jason a lesson at the end. And it's like, that's...
I don't know if I even buy that, though, because I don't think Jason really learned anything. I think it felt like Damien tried to teach him a lesson, and he was kind of like, nah.
I think it's hard to call anything in this a spoiler because it's very, like, kind of... It's a very straight line.
Yeah.
I think the last page is meant to imply that Jason, like, walked into the door that's, like, the door that he was hiding things behind that he didn't want to look at. And so he was like, accepting
I don't know,
that.
I guess that feels a little weak to me, you know.
I mean, it
like
was weak, and that was part of the problem.
I feel like I really liked like maybe like the first 6 pages of this issue. Like you said, the hunter thing was like a cool setup. I was kind of excited for this version of Jason, and then a lot of it ended up being him sitting around. And then the like overarching plot beat we get here is they fight a guy who kicks both of their asses, and then
and not only that, they start to hunt this guy, and he was already waiting for them. So Jason's skills weren't even important.
But then he just like it is just it's basically a fight scene to have a fight scene in the issue, which is unfortunate because it doesn't really accomplish much of anything, which is a little sad. I mean, it looks great because Junie Ba does a lot of really cool stuff and characters are in motion and so I liked a lot of that. Jason looks a little bit better when he's wearing like his sweatshirt and stuff compared to when he's not. But yeah, I didn't think this issue worked as well as a solo issue as the first issue, and I certainly didn't think it worked as like a piece of a larger puzzle.
Yeah. I feel like I had one thing that you were concerned about that we briefly talked about off pod here. Every Jason story, it seems, has to have his whole backstory laid out, which you are not a fan of.
One of my number one complaints. It's my number one complaint with Jason because he never moves anywhere. Obviously, this is a different universe, but what if it's like, let's just put Jason right back to where he was. Let's just put Jason right back to where he was so we can tell the same story because Jason only has one story in comics outside of his first story that was amazing, which was when he was actually a villain, which is, I kill people. Everybody else tells me I'm not allowed to kill people. I need to go from anti-hero to full-blown hero. And then we're going to restart. And we're going to tell that story again. And then we're going to restart and tell that story again. And I was so excited because at the beginning of this, it felt like Junie Ba was so aware of that. And so he was like sidestepping it. He was like, I have this past. Somebody did this. I'm not going to say Joker directly. I'm not going to show Joker directly. And I'm certainly not going to flash back to the crowbar like we do constantly. And then as we slowly moved on, we get a Joker vision. There's Joker shown directly. But I can still accept it. And then toward the very end, we get that goddamn crowbar flashback.
Silhouette.
Because we can't not get the crowbar flashback in Jason's first appearance in any, new series or new arc. Yeah. It's like, why? I know. Everybody knows. It's so famous. We don't need it again.
And also, it doesn't need to be the only thing that informs him.
Yeah. Ugh. No, full agree. I'd rather like a flashback to his confrontation with Batman.
Right.
It feels like that gets swept under the rug so much. Like that's more interesting.
And that's also specifically relevant to Damien's issue right now.
Yeah. Like show us what his falling out with Batman, how that worked in this universe. Right? Because that's more intriguing than he was killed by Joker again. It's like, okay, how did the fight with Batman go here? Did he do the same thing? Did he take over parts of the kingdom now instead of the city?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, how does that work? That would have been
or
cool.
even just like not showing any of it. Like, we got the allusion to it about him being like the exiled son. You didn't really need more than that.
If you wanted to do something back there, because I think that's kind of the vibe of this too, is like the parallel storytelling of like, this is what this Robin went through, and this is how it's going to affect Damian. Like, that would have been more interesting to me. Or even just his time as Robin. Like, doing the crowbar felt a little lame. But in any case, harped on it. I still think Junie Ba's style makes it a fun read to some extent, even if I have
what does that earn it as a numbered rating?
That earns it a 6.5 out of 10 for me. Because it's still more enjoyable, I think, than like a perfectly average comic book, because Junie Ba just has such a creative vision and such energy to his work. But yeah, this issue itself wasn't a high point so far for me.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go a little half step below you and give it just a 6. It just felt like such a drop from expectations. Like, with issue 1 meeting expectations, it set up expectations for issue 2, and to not meet them sucked a little bit. Not the book, just not meeting the expectations, to be clear. So, not a pull list rec from either one of us. Look, Anyway, are we ready to go talk about Cult of the Lamb? Or the Mammoth? Let's go talk about the Mammoth before this man keeps laughing at me. I'm having my own Joker flashback.
The Mammoth number 1. Something is wrong in the deep forests of Broke Tree Valley. Something deadly. Something mammoth. The legends speak of something larger than human comprehension, a monstrous phantom that disappears for decades at a time. Now it's back, and things are about to go very bad if 4 people, Olivia, Jess, Krokoro, and Mason, scientists who have come to the small city of Casbro to investigate a bizarre series of seismic activities in this heavily forested valley, can't put the Mammoth to rest. One real problem with this. Olivia's dead. The writer of this book is Paul Tobin of a bunch of Marvel Adventures series, Spider-Girl, and The Witcher. The artist is...
You fool! He also did My Date with Monsters.
Listen, I always enjoyed. If you want the behind the scenes on how I do credits for the podcast, it is usually their top 3 most issues done in the current role that they're doing, unless there is something similar that is more well known to people, in which case I will pull the Marvel and DC title.
Which is fair, but obviously My Date with Monsters is well known to all of our listeners who listened to our bonus episode on it.
It was just nowhere near the issue count of these other books.
No, for sure. It's only 5 issues.
Yeah. Whereas like these other things were like 20, you know. So the artist is Arjuna Suzini, who's done Heist, book I love, Lamentation, and Made Men. So
hell yeah,
very cool there. And colorist is Pippa Boland, and the letterer is Charles Pritchett. We kind of both went into this with like this isn't our usual type of book vibe. I think it was similar to the book we didn't end up doing for that. So I'm interested to hear how you landed on it.
I enjoyed it, and I think I am going to enjoy it. My concern specifically with issue 1 here is that I feel like the hook came at the end.
Yes.
And it wasn't even like what we know to be the hook.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a spoiler because it's about something that doesn't come up. The Mammoth is still unknown in the first issue, which isn't like the end of the world, to be clear, but it's a little odd to have this other mystery happening, which is a spoiler, so I won't jump into that. To have this like big twist happen, and to know that the mammoth, the creature, the being, whatever it is out there, and to have basically no allusions to it aside from like a 100-year-old interview.
Yeah.
And so that was my big hurdle with the issue.
Yeah. I kind of agree with it. It feels like there's like 2 main plot points to the series that like all the, you know, promotional material uses. and it feels like neither one is in this issue until the very end, which feels weird. That being said, I think it has a really good ending. I think there's a lot of cool stuff. I also think the dialogue is really, really good.
It's very realistic dialogue.
Yeah, which I very much enjoy. And like I felt all the characters were intriguing and like interesting enough.
And I'm sure that you were, waving your pom-poms because everybody says their own names like multiple times.
Yes, I was. I was noting. I was like, I know your names. I know it. It's Jess Mason. I was like, this is great. I'm so happy. It's
when they were addressing each other by name, I was like, Jay's gonna love this.
Yes, because it's such an easy thing that makes me so much more able to get invested because I know who the characters are.
Yeah.
So I love that. So that made me very happy. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that's the main limitation. It's just that the book doesn't really get into what it's doing yet, which is a typical problem of indie number ones. It's hard to get everything out there. This is all set up. Very little sizzle, very little steak. They give it to you at the very end, which is enough to get you intrigued for issue 2. So at the end of the day, I think it did its job, but I maybe would have liked it to go a little bit.
Yeah. Like we've touted the benefits of oversized first issues for books before, which obviously isn't always feasible. I will say I do think that some of the stuff at the start we could have cut down. Like there are a number of scenes that I like being there, but are maybe like you could have cut a page or two out. Right?
Shoom is like my favorite comic book sound effect. It's such a fun one. I also love the art.
The art is very good. And there are 2 dogs. Can you believe it? I was spoiled.
It was funny because when the one got home to their dog, I was like, wait, I thought the other one had a dog. And then the dog actually popped up and I was like, oh, that's a different dog.
There are 2 dogs. So astounding. The dogs better keep showing up.
But I'm going to ask you if you have a number rating now, unless there's something else you want to hit.
Yeah, I think I'm going to give this bad boy a 7 out of 10. Because I like a lot of the pieces that are there. And we've talked about this being like being the better of 2 feelings about a comic. A lot of cool things were there. I wish more of it was there in this first issue.
Yes. Absolutely the better feeling than like, this was, boring or, I saw everything, but I didn't like it. This is like, I liked what I saw, but I wanted to see more. I'm going to completely agree with you there. It's a 7 out of 10, and I give it a Polish rack. I think this is a series worth checking out.
I think I'm going to wait until I read issue 2 to decide if I want to put my rec on this. We'll see how it moves.
That's fair. I think it's a series worth checking out right now, but
I will say, I pulled it, so...
Yeah.
It's on my pull list, but I don't know that I can just blanket say, put it on you.
That's fair. Do you want to go on to Cult of the Lamb?
Cult of the Lamb. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Cult of the Lamb, number 1. In a land pervaded by cruelty and evil, the most innocent among us, young Lamb, the last of their kind, was selected to become a final dark sacrifice. Their death would forever seal the darkest of the old gods from our realm, and usher in a new age ruled by the 4 eldritch bishops of the old faith. So, Lamb died, then forged a deal of their own. At the crossroads of eternity, Lamb was met by the imprisoned deity known as the One Who Waits, who revealed the lies and distortions of the false prophets who rule the world above. And so, Lamb was bequeathed the power and responsibilities of the Red Crown, and returned to the land of the living with unholy powers to exact vengeance and deliver a new cult unto the earth. The writer here is Alex Packnadel of All Against All and Red Goblin. The artist is Troy Little of Rick and Morty vs. Dungeons & Dragons, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and Drawing Blood. The colorist is Nick Filardi, and the letterers are from, I believe it's a studio that's Crank, right?
It just says lettered by Crank.
Crank, person or studio, great job. I'm proud of you. So I have never played with nor interacted with anything about Cult of the Lamb, which, if you are unaware, is a very popular indie video game.
Yeah, very fun video game. Yeah.
Jay, I believe you said that you have not played it, but have engaged with it.
I have engaged with it. I've watched people play it. This follows it has a rough general plot. Like the opening is basically the opening of the game. where the lamb becomes, like, is slaughtered, and then the man's like, as long as you deliver me a colt, you can, come back and seek your vengeance, and then you go back, and then that's basically where it stops having much of a story, except for like things you have to kill, people who recruit. Actually, the first guy that he recruits in this book is also the first guy that you recruit in the game, as is the one-eyed guy is in the game, but instead of being like the guy kind of pushing him on in the game, it's like your like tutorial help menu guy. So
amazing.
Yeah, this I think really took the very basic plot of the game, because I don't think the game, at least the way that I've engaged with the people I've seen play it, it feels like the lore is there, but it's not like a story driven game so much as it is like a more, you go, you kill stuff, you recruit followers for your cult, and
I was gonna ask, because again, I've not engaged with it at all. What kind of game is Cult of the Lamb?
It's kind of like it's weird because it's like not a full. It's kind of like like one of those like dungeon runner games almost, but you kind of have like two different things. Like you go into the dungeon to do your dungeon running, and then you like come out, and you have like kind of like a farm simulator thing with all of your cultists. So it's like,
okay, that tracks.
Make him chop down a tree and make him do this, but you need to have food for them, and then they go, and then you're trying to gain like devotion from them so that you can, be like the best cult leader ever. So yeah, anyway, I thought that the comic did a fantastic job fleshing that into like an actual story. And I think Troy Little's art is like the huge thing here. Like seeing this like little lamb just so innocent and like sad, and then he just gets beheaded, and it's brutal, and then he comes back, and I love a good revenge story, and I think that there's way more nuance than like it needed to have, because it's a video game adaptation, but like he's kind of like his slow it feels like it's a slow burn of him becoming like a full-blown obsessive cult leader.
Yeah.
It feels like that's where we're starting the track of, which I really like. And yeah, it being kind of this cutesy art style with this horrific like plot is a very me thing, as is a revenge story. So this feels like a very me comic. So I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah.
Amazing. I'm so glad to hear it. Because yeah, it's again, the art fits the tone so well, and the tone is very fun. I do think that as someone who has not played the game or engaged with the game, maybe I am not the target audience of it. But it's very well done, and I think that there's a reason that it made like over $600,000 on Kickstarter, right?
Yeah, the Kickstarter went crazy. I don't know what it ended up with, but the last I saw was it broke the $666,666 mark. So, yeah, I don't know, what pretty crazy.
Yeah, no, it was super well done. I think that a lot of, like you said, a lot of that is attributed to Troy Little and his art, because he does manage to do that, like, I'm gonna say cartoon violence, but not in the way that we say cartoon violence about like Radiant Black. Cartoon violence as in an adorable character with a chainsaw type thing.
Like adult cartoon, like
exactly,
something you expect to see more on like Adult Swim, like that kind of a vibe. Yeah.
He does that cartoon violence so well. And it's really cute. And I did like that there is, like you said, a story arc for the lamb. I do wish that they gave the lamb a name, just because, I don't know.
I think I think that's like a video game side effect, because like the characters that have names happen, and then like it's like you name the main character and who you are, and like
a game. I didn't realize that you named the lamb in the game.
I think I'm fairly certain you name the lamb whatever you want to name. You can also actually rename the other characters though. Like the first follower has a name, but you can like rename him in the game. So like they didn't have to do that, but yeah, I'm assuming it's because like he's like the game protagonist, so he's not gonna have a name because he's like game protagonist. I assume that's the idea.
I didn't realize that you could name the lamb.
I think you can, yeah. But yeah, so this is just like the next installment of me loving everything that Oni Press is doing right now. Like I think Oni Press is just moving up my favorite publisher list right now, because I've yet to dislike a book from Oni Press.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Very good. But do I do number rating first here? Do you do number rating first here? I don't remember.
You do a number rating first.
I do a number rating first here. Yeah, like I said, this is just very suited to me. And I enjoyed it a ton. So I'm gonna give this an 8 out of 10. I thought this was really, really enjoyable. I will certainly be reading the rest of the series as it comes out, and I will get my other copies when the Kickstarter is done and filled. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm coming at this from the opposite direction of Boy Wonder. because this one I also landed on a 6.5. Oh, I'm sorry.
You did a
Whereas
6 for Boy Wonder.
What?
You did a 6 for Boy Wonder.
There you go. Better than Boy Wonder, but still coming at it from opposite directions. Where it's like,
I'm
this
sorry,
is kind of... No, I appreciate you remembering my numbered ratings, because I don't. I say them and then they're gone.
I gave it a 6.5, and then you were like, I'm gonna have stuff below. Yeah.
But I feel like from Boy Wonder, I was like, oh, this is like so up my alley, but it's at the bottom end of my alley. This being something that's not up my alley is at like the top end of not up my alley. So it's a good fun time, and I think that if you like the game, you should definitely grab it.
Absolutely. But we have one more book this week, Falling in Love on the Path to Hell. Let's go to hell. Falling in Love on the Path to Hell, number 1. The sun sets on samurai and gunslingers at roughly the same time, but our two leads didn't die off quietly. In the east, Asami, an Ona Musha warrior and female samurai, would rather die with her weapons than surrender them to a sword hunt. In the west, the gunslinger McWraith follows his revenge to the bitter end and pays the ultimate price. The future lovers are mortally wounded, a world apart, and awake together in the purgatory ruled by a ruthless society of damned warriors. This one has it all action. Okay.
This one has it all. Action.
Yeah, they have all action like dashed together, which is what makes it really
I think
weird.
it's a hyphen. Or not, I'm sorry, not a hyphen. I think it's like a little M dash.
Yeah.
I'm not looking at the document though, so
it has it all. Action, the dead and dying, the undead, and of course, romance. The writer is Jerry Duggan of X-Men, Deadpool, and Iron Man. The artist is Gary Brown, The Massive, Baby Teeth, and X-Force. The colorist is Chris O'Halloran, and the letterer is Joe Sabino. Katie.
Yes.
How'd you know about Falling in Love on the Path to Hell?
I liked it. I think that it's a really rad concept. I like the melding of like Old West and samurai. I think that that's super cool, and I think that if we get even more things like we saw a couple of the other warriors at the end of the book, as we get more of those, I think it's going to be super cool. It's reminding me a bit of, I'm blanking on who the creative team on it was, but it's an Aftershock book called The Heathens, about like great warriors who died and then were kind of conscripted to be a suicide squad in the afterlife. And so it kind of mixes the aesthetics, kind of like that, and also a little bit like plot holes. You gotta love mixing genres, because it makes for really cool looks and vibes and interactions. My gripe with the first issue, I'm very gripey this week. I'm so sorry.
And we might have the same gripe with the first issue. I'm interested to hear this. It's a gripe we had with another book. So
I was gonna say it's the same gripe that I had with Sinister Sons #1.
Oh no, that's not the book that I'm gonna compare it to. But I'm interested to hear this.
Where with Sinister Sons #1, I'm like, for a book where it seems like so much of the like success or effectiveness of the book is gonna ride on the relationship of these two characters, we don't really get interactions between these two characters in the first issue. And whereas I really liked specifically Asami's backstory, because we watched McCrae's do his thing, and then we see Asami do her, and Asami's thing is so fucking cool. That, like, if that 8-page, 10-page, whatever it was, section was a standalone book, I would just hang it on my wall. It was so good. Yeah, it's one of those things where they're doing a lot of character groundwork when it feels like we're going into an unfamiliar world, so I could use a little more world groundwork in that first issue.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm gonna agree with a lot of what you said. I really like this issue mainly because I think weirdly Asami's backstory gets more page space, despite the fact that like they both get a backstory. It feels like Asami's is longer than McCrae's, and I don't think McCrae's did a great job of introducing him. No, because he was kind of like the boogeyman figure there. Yeah, so we didn't get as much of him, and then we go to Asami and we get so much of her, and it's so good. And I love samurais and feudal Japan, so fantastic, great stuff. But my main kind of gripe here, and I really like the ending too. Once we kind of get them together, I think that was great too. So really the only bit of this issue that I didn't really like is the beginning of it. But my gripe on this book, which I don't even know if we talked about this on the podcast, because I don't know if the beginning of the series, I know we talked about the series on the podcast, but I don't know if we talked about the beginning of the series on the podcast, is my gripe with the beginning of The Hunger in the Dusk. Which is when you are building a story and you're advertising us a story of like, it's this great romance between these two characters, and then obviously it's not there yet. I just hate that. I just hate that when we're like, it's even in the blurb, like the future lovers. I'm like, why? Especially because I don't think you needed to sell this book as obviously the title does, but I don't think you needed to sell this book as a love story because the concept's great on its own, and you could be like, these two have to partner up, and then you can tell that like slow burn love story.
Yeah.
It just feels a little bit like giving away the plot, and it's the same thing in The Hunger in the Dusk, where it's like, you go through time, and maybe this one's much faster, because The Hunger in the Dusk went through 5 issues without them really becoming romantic. Yeah. And it gave away the plot. This one, we'll see how slow burn the love story is, but it just feels a little bit about, like, you are giving that away so soon, when I would be more interested in seeing it unfold, you know? Right?
And also, I feel like you don't need to name it, or don't need to say that in the description, when the name of the book is Falling in Love on the Path to Hell.
I think it's more there as like as a deflection of like, if somebody reads the book, they're going to be like, where's the love? So they like put it in the description as like, it will happen in the future.
Okay, all I'm saying is that if you put comparably aged characters, and there's 2 main ones, and one's a man and one's a woman, and they're not siblings, everyone's going to think that they're going to bone. Like... Because that's so much of what, storytelling or whatever is. Even if it's not, like, the main plot. I think there's going to be an assumption that, they're gonna... Yeah.
No, yeah.
So, like, it really felt unnecessary to bill it as such.
No.
And I feel like I would have been much more willing to pick it up. Like, I think I was the one who suggested this, because I was like, Jay, it's got female samurai in it. You want to read this one, I bet.
Yeah.
And I was like, and it has cowboys. I'm getting into cowboy comics. I want to read this one.
You are such a big cowboy comic person now.
I really am. I don't even recognize myself in the mirror.
Cowboy and pulp is like your new comic,
and it genres. Confuses me. I'm like, I didn't realize that I was a 60-year-old man. Glad I'm learning this about myself.
It's so true, though.
It really is, and It's been a real journey to realize this about myself. I'm like, I thought that I was like, I thought I was really cool and like modern things that are like, subversive and shit. It's like, no, I like the most vanilla shit in the world.
Yeah. You like the vanilla stuff from the 30s. Like, what the fuck? Like, nobody has liked westerns or pulps in 100 goddamn years, Katie. Or, like, 80 goddamn years. Like, these are the first, like, big fiction, markets that are so dried out and dead right now.
Yeah. Look... I wish that I was different. The real struggle is the live documentation of me being like, I really like this book, actually. Yeah. I didn't realize this is the type of book that I like. This one that's similar to that other one, I actually really like this one too, so it's not really just an exception to the rule or anything. It just seems to be a pattern.
No, the slow burn of like, I'm not really a Western person, but this Western, and like I don't really read pulps or detective stories, but this one really... it's another pulp detective story. Katie must love this. Like, that is just on the podcast. Full stop. On the podcast, you can track that, and it's amazing.
It's embarrassing, but you know what? Yeah. Not anymore.
You want to slap a rating on this one, though?
I will slap a rating on this one. I was bummed that the cowboy side of it was not super fun, but the rest of it, very good, and I'm super excited to see where it's going. I gave this bad boy a 7.5, and I would call this one a pull list rep.
I'm gonna fully agree with you once again, because I think I'm saying detective because we just talked about that. The cowboy stuff was the weakest, but it was also the shortest. Like, it's maybe the first 8 pages of the book, if that. And then Asami's story felt longer to me. Maybe it's just because there was more text going on, so it took longer. But it felt like that was the larger portion of this book, and then the ending segment, and I liked all that. So 7.5 out of 10 and a pull list rec from me as well. I'm actually really excited to see where this goes, though.
Asami's is so much longer.
I
sorry, I
thought
was
so.
counting while you were saying
I
that.
thought
It was
so,
like 8
which is so
pages versus
weird.
like 14 pages.
That's so weird to do in like a parallel,
Right.
like these are two main characters thing. Feels so weird to do. But also, if
Very
that's how
odd.
long they felt like they needed for each one, like fine. But McRae could have gotten a little bit more in terms of
And
fleshing out his
also,
character.
they were focusing on the better one. Like, I know that's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It is absolutely. I mean, for me though, like that's the funny thing. Like the fact that they focus on the better one, I feel like is there for me because I would like that story more anyway. But for you, I feel like if the other one was longer, you probably and like more fleshed out, you probably would have liked that better. So anyway,
so we'll see how it goes. We're very excited. I'm assuming we'll keep grabbing this one for the pod as well, so y'all can see how it keeps going as well.
I think we will. But do you want to go to the creator corner where we no longer have a guest? We were gonna have a guest, but we no longer have a guest, so Katie's gonna have to think on the spot for a topic. Let's do it.
Well, here we are in the creator corner where we sit back, relax, talk about writing, talk about making comics, talk about the biz. And today, as Joseph so kindly noted, we're going a little off the cuff with the idea of the creator corner.
I did know that. Yes,
you did know that, exposing us for being unprepared.
I'm all about being. It's not unprepared when somebody cancels on us and we have to, like change what we're doing.
It was a valid cancellation.
Oh, it was a super valid cancellation.
Yeah.
Just say it's not because we were unprepared, but I think we gotta be open with the way that we run
fair enough. We're fully transparent.
We're very transparent.
So I decided on it. I was trying to decide how much of a joke to make about being transparent, and now I feel like I have to make the joke because it shocked you once to learn that most of the time when we record, I don't put on pants because like it's the chest up. I think I might be
too transparent.
I agree, but then I paused too long, and then it felt like I couldn't not say it, and I was trying to think of anything else that I could have been transparent about.
I thought it was weird that you told me that. Like, I didn't think that was information that I needed.
I think it was in the context of like, oh, I'm gonna go put on pants when we were logging off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like it wasn't that I was like, hey Joseph, guess what?
But
anyway,
creator corner.
Oh my gosh, wait, that's so thematic actually, because last minute here. Yes, kind of. Honestly, a little bit about not wearing pants. Because I was like, okay, what's something fun and off the cuff that we can do? I would love to talk about character designs. And like costume designs. Because that's such a fun part of making characters.
Yeah.
You have made a character or two in your day. And these characters...
Many more than two. But yes.
Yeah. These characters, for the most part, it's going to be... if you're the first step or you're, doing your own thing, a lot of times the character designs are going to start with you, even if once they go to your artist, they tweak it and make, cool decisions, because artists are really good at doing that. So Jay, what is your process when you have your character and you're like, this is what my character is, this is what my story is, this is what my world is? How do you decide what your characters look like?
Such an interesting question, because I think, like, one, the way the question's formulated is a little bit wrong already, because like the idea that you have fully come up with the idea for this character and then you're designing them from scratch is a little bit wrong. Like the design is going to be there. Yeah, you're like fully, and you have no design element as you decide on a character. There's never design like as part of you coming up with a character. That's wild.
I mean, well, the thing is, what I'm saying is that generally I'll know what my story is, I'll know what my character is, and then I'll make, like, intentional decisions about the way that they look.
Yeah, I feel like some of that comes throughout the story and thing, because I think designs are intertwined a lot with, like, what you're doing. So, like, if you're telling, an assassin story, and it's like, they're part of this organization, it's like, okay, they're going to be wearing this organization outfit, which is probably somewhat ninja-esque, and then you'll build it out from there or whatever. Or like, you have a concept for somebody who's like, his powers are this, or he has this item that's like important. So like that's a big part of the design. And then obviously their age, which is part of the design, is probably part of the concept. And like so there's a lot of stuff on that
for
front.
sure.
Like,
there are parts, but there is, I think, a point where you start making decisions about what they look like.
Yes. But I don't think you're usually starting like from I have this character and now they need a full blown design. So I think that it's a little bit more like intertwined than that. I think typically, well, there's a few things. I'll say one is I tend to, depending on the importance of the character, it's like a bell curve to the amount that I leave to the artist, if that makes sense. Like the more important the character, the more that I'm going to, not a bell curve, what the fuck do you call that? What do you call the like
an exponential graph?
Yeah, like exponential decline. Of like, okay, very important character. I'm gonna have almost everything figured out of like, okay, they wear this color and then this, and they, are this size and this build and this
and
stuff.
This is what their leather jacket looks like, and this is what the next person's leather jacket looks like.
Yeah. And then like as you go down to like, here's this side character that pops up once. It's like, okay, it's an old woman, and besides that, you're not gonna get any other, description. Yeah. It's an old woman. So like that there's my exponential decline in how much I figure out. But yeah, I don't know, character design's a hard thing to discuss because I think character design's I think there's two aspects of comic book creation that I think you can pull anybody off the street and have them do this role for a comic book, and the comic book can still be incredibly successful. And those two are concept and character design. Like I think anybody can do concept and character design basically just as is, and then they have to learn beyond that, like, how do you plot things? Because it's like that thing of like, you ever have your buddy, it's like, oh man, they came up with this great idea, like, man, they could be a writer, it's like, I think 90% of our population could come up with an idea that could end up being an incredibly successful comic book,
for sure,
movie, whatever. Because the concept, easy. Character designs, I think, are similar. Where people are like, what if we had this guy and he was like in this cool suit and he had like this mechanized arm or whatever? Like, I think that's something that people are pretty innately capable of. And so I think the more kind of important aspect you need to do in comic book creation is figuring out like, how do you deliver that to an artist? Like, how do you take your concept and then deliver it to an artist, and then how does the artist kind of go from there? Because at the end of the day, the artist is the one who's going to actually be essentially designing the character.
Right.
Like, you'll give them all the pieces, but at the end of the day, they are the ones who are designing the character in the truest sense of the word. So typically, I think there's a few steps you need, which is all the things that are like definitive, which is like, he has brown hair, he has a beard, he has, he's 4'5", he's got a pickaxe.
Jay loves to write short
designing kings. A dwarf. I was designing a dwarf there, pickaxe, beard.
I mean, what's the difference between designing a dwarf and any of your main characters?
That is very rude. In any case, so like there's those things that are like very distinctive. I will say, in comic books, a little bit of a weird thing is that height isn't really as like definitive as it is in other mediums. You basically have short, average, and tall. Like those are basically your options. Like there's very little, and you might end up having characters that like in theory should be shorter, but they end up being the same height in a lot of panels because it's just kind of how the medium works. You're already not sitting there with like, he's 4'5", and then he's 4'8", and then he's 5 foot, and then and like here's our list of everybody's exact height.
Which is why it's important for the public to know that every main character that Jay writes is a short king. They won't be able to know otherwise.
Yeah, no. But in any case, so the point I'm making is like, you want your definitives, then I think you want like essentially your more stylistic things, which are going to end up being like something like this. Here are reference photos, something in this idea, and then you're going to go to like the least definitive route, which is going to be like something more along the lines of, I want him to feel like this to people. I want him to be like, I want him to be imposing. I want him to be, cowardly. Like a lot of times, and that's in a medium like comics, somebody's personality is going to be very important to the design. Yes. So that's like the step. So I go,
and conversely, their design is going to be very important for bringing their personality across.
So I go from definitives to kind of like references and things that are of the similar, or like, you know, it'll be like something like, he's gonna wear a, you know, religious type outfit that's gonna evoke these things, or he's gonna wear an assassin outfit that's gonna evoke these things. So I might not have every detail of the exact way the outfit looks, but it's like something of that grasp. And then I go to the personality to kind of end us off with like, this should be the feel. So that's my
that's a great checklist.
Pyramid, reverse pyramid, I guess, because you're gonna have the most of the specifics, and then like you'll probably have like one general personality thing or two.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So it's a reverse pyramid.
I mean, I'm not going to get into it's still a pyramid, even if it's in any case. No, that's
it's a pyramid that sits on its point. Is that what you want? Is that what you want me to say? It's a pyramid that sits on its point.
It's also not 3-dimensional, so is it a pyramid?
3-dimensional? No.
What are on the different sides? Tell me more.
On the different sides. It's just you layer them in a way that ends up being 3-dimensional.
Okay.
We've lost the plot this week.
We've lost the plot on this one.
So you, Katie, as somebody who doesn't usually, I guess, have much of the design as you're writing the story, how do you then as you're coming up with the story? I'm sure once you start writing the story, you have it. But as you come up with the story, how do you then? I say this like we haven't designed characters together, but how do you then land on designing? Tell the people how you then kind of go about designing a character.
Well, I think one of the most important things when designing characters is keeping in mind what their design says about them. Like you said, their design is based on their personality, and you're going to be able to communicate things like immediately to someone based off of someone's design. So I think 100%. That keeping in mind their perception. So like, I think that one of the worst things that you can do, aside from having like an 11-year-old character, is like he's in a hoodie and jeans. It's like, okay, that communicates nothing for the most part, unless what you're trying to communicate is this is just a regular kid. And I think that is when that's important. But if your main character is wearing just a hoodie and jeans, you're not learning anything about that character. So I think choosing things intentionally is a really big deal, whether it's like, oh, this character wears really fucking heavy boots because she is like outside all the time, or even something as easy as, oh, she is an archaeologist, so she is in fact wearing like khaki shorts and has like a neck kerchief. I think that being able to
flashlight on her belt at all times, because
exactly
it's important.
And I think that that's something that actually can give you really fun things to do in your book as well, because like, to use a kind of silly low stakes example, it's like, oh, this is our character in this Nancy Drew-esque story who does keep a flashlight on her belt at all times. That could be like a comedy thing in a moment. If it's like, hey, why the fuck are you wearing a flashlight? She's like, you never know when you'll need a flashlight. And then they're in the dark and there's like a sudden click. And she's the only one with a flashlight and it's important. Like that's the type of thing where she's got to have glasses if she's carrying a flashlight. If she doesn't have glasses, she would clearly have a magnifying glass.
Yeah. Are we just making Velma at this point?
Yes. Technical difficulties. We are back, baby, and we are talking about character designs, but you know that because it's been a couple seconds instead of a few minutes. But yeah, I think that when you put specific things in your character design, it's a really good way for you to, communicate things about your character to your audience, but it's also a really good way for you to learn things about your character yourself.
Yeah.
Like, what does your character keep on them? Like, to use our little Velma Dinkley insert, maybe she's scared of the dark, which is why she always has a flashlight. And maybe that's not something that's relevant, but maybe it's something where you're like, oh, right. This character is scared of the dark, so maybe she gets really uneasy when, like, night starts to fall, or maybe... And then that's just ways for you to add these little, like, crumbs of personality to your characters that make them feel fleshed out, even if it's not, like, the most important details of them.
Yeah. No, fully
And
agree.
I feel like it just gives you a good jumping off point to kind of think about your characters as complete people.
Yeah, no, and to kind of go off that, like, here's a, while you were reloading, exercise that I thought of that I think it can be incredibly helpful for kind of identifying what about a design kind of makes a character. So I think you can go to, and I'm going to use cartoons because I think they're the best example. Go to like all the different iterations of a cartoon that's been rebooted a bunch of times. You can go to Scooby-Doo. You know, we talked about that, where you can go to like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, any cartoon that's been rebooted a ton of times, and just look at the designs all side by side and go like, what aspects are kept throughout all of them, and what are they kind of allowed to change without losing it? And then maybe look at an incarnation that did lose it and didn't really work out, and what they changed. Velma. And and you can kind of identify like, maybe the heights are changing wildly and the proportions are changing wildly, but you know, Velma always has that magnifying glass, or you know, Leonardo's always got his katanas, you know, like whatever it is, it's like that is an aspect of the design that really informs the character. And then when you go into your character, you know, obviously you're not going to be thinking about, I need 3 different versions of this character, you know, for reboots, but you can kind of identify like, okay, what is really important to this character in the design? Because then also, when you go to an artist, no artist is ever going to be mad about you saying, whether it's in a script or in a design sheet or something, like, this is important, this is more important, this is the thing that's really important, this is a must-have compared to everything else. So yeah, I don't know, at least as far as my experience, artists tend to really like if you give them like a description, but then maybe in that description it's like, the weapon's really important. Like, it's really important that he has this, or it's really important that he does have exactly 3 pockets, because that comes up later in the story. So like, if there's something like that that's super important, emphasize that. And I think identifying the things that are going to be super important to the story is very important early on.
Yeah. And to pivot to what I think is going to be silly but fun in this otherwise clearly very serious creator corner.
You're such serious people.
Such serious intellectuals, academics even. What do you think, like, I guess it is a little serious, a little less silly, in the context of what do you think are some terrible character designs? What are some pitfalls to look out for when you are designing a character? And if you have examples of characters with shitty designs, please, by all means.
I don't want to throw characters under the bus.
I mean, I was going to say, like, mainstream ones. Like, everybody knows about Power Girl's tit window. Terrible.
They made a lot of money. They've made a lot of money off that tit window.
They have. But it's terrible.
Depends on your goal. If your goal is to sell comics, I don't know if people would consider it that. I'm sure DC executives don't consider it terrible. In any case, yeah, I think in terms of pitfalls, you had mentioned earlier, like, something super generic in the sense of like, it's like, they wear a sweatshirt and pants, and unless like your idea is like a mild-mannered person who's going to be like pulled out of their world, or like everything's going to change and then the design can evolve. Unless that's your goal, I think trying to avoid something that is super just normal is typically good for your main characters. Everything I come at from like an action, a sci-fi, a, you know, Western, like if you're writing a comedy, then like, yeah, your characters can be dressed fairly normal.
But I will throw out,
you want them to be distinctive from one another, but they can be dressed in like you can have a guy who wears, you know, like graphic tees and you know, shorts in a comedy.
I was actually going to say that's one of the things that I would be very careful of. If you want your character to wear like personality t-shirts, be careful being like, in this scene, he's wearing a heavy metal t-shirt. In this scene, he's wearing, you know, an ironic nerdy t-shirt. Like, that, I guess as a not artist, I don't necessarily know, but I feel like getting incredibly intricate with your designs, where it doesn't need to be intricate, feels like an easy pitfall to fall into.
Well, it feels like famously, especially, I don't think it's as big of a thing in the modern day, but especially like in the past, like there used to be a big thing about a lot of Marvel artists not wanting to work on Spider-Man because of how intricate
all the lines,
and the ridiculous amount of lines you have to draw. Like I think that was a big Jack Kirby thing. Like, I think Jack Kirby wouldn't draw the lines on Spider-Man a lot of times when he drew Spider-Man, which is why Jack Kirby has not drawn Spider-Man all that much outside of the obviously famous Amazing Fantasy 15 cover. But outside of those, if you've seen his other drawings of Spider-Man, they just don't have a lot of the lines. And I think that was a common thing amongst artists who didn't really want to do Spider-Man because of that. And obviously, if you're Marvel, if you're DC, you can get away with more. But if you're sitting here designing a character and you want an artist who's actually going to want to work on your book and not charge you more to work on your book or anything like that, getting a costume that's like all these intricate little lines and stuff, like, that could get you in trouble. You know, if you have somebody and it's like, he doesn't just have a utility belt with like pouch, he has a utility belt where you can see every one of 11 intricate important items. It's like, nobody wants to draw that. Like, that's you're asking for your artist to do everything chest up, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think that's a very good point to make, is like the idea of how intricate a design is definitely a pitfall for if you're an indie book and you're going to be working with an artist who is, you know, their time is very important to them, and odds are on your project they're not making as much as they would be drawing Spider-Man's costume, so they're probably not going to want to draw Spider-Man's costume.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I think that I'm sorry, I did cut you off in the middle of what you were saying, but you were saying that like the hoodie and or the sweatshirt and jeans, like if you're writing a comedy, sure, but I would like to point out something like Paper Girls, where, you know, I'm totally forgetting the badass bitch's name. The girl who smokes, like, she wears like an old bomber jacket. The lacrosse girl wears like an athletic t-shirt. Like, you can still, with like slice of life stuff, really convey personality. And one of the places I would point to with that is stuff like anime. Like, the way that because so much of anime that's like slice of life is like in a school, but so much of what they do to like subtly change a school outfit shows the way that you can really show personality through design.
I mean, though, if you want to go to anime, like, I think one of the interesting things anime is how much, because a lot of times they'll be wearing essentially the same outfit, how much the personality is in their hair. Like, anime characters have crazy hair. Most, like, if you look at the proportion of anime characters that have like colored hair that isn't a natural hair color, it is probably over 50%. Like, it is so common to have some sort of spiky or crazy colored hair. And I think it's because, like, maybe then you don't get as much with the outfit. And yeah, there's like little things, but like there's only so many variations they could do.
Exactly,
all those characters, adding in slight tweaks of the outfit along with crazy hair and maybe headphones or glasses, all these things that are very common to see on these types of characters. Buttons or like little ribbons and stuff that they tend to have, you know, like, it's kind of pulled out from there. My point with comedy characters wasn't more like you don't want them to be different from each other, but it's that you can use stuff that's more typically generic as like your options. You know, like your comedy character can wear a sweatshirt. You just don't want then all of them to wear sweatshirts. Whereas like if you're in an action book, you probably don't want your character wearing a sweatshirt and jeans, regardless of if anybody else is wearing a sweatshirt and jeans, unless the point is it's Jessica Jones and there's some sort of point to that. You know,
and I think part of that is also, is this their main design? Like, talked about a character who wears a sweatshirt and jeans, Mitchell from Radiant Black. Wait, not Mitchell. Yes, Mitchell?
Nathan. Right?
His friend.
Is Mitchell...
Why am I forgetting?
Is Mitchell the... I can't know.
Oh, no.
Mitchell, Nathan? I don't know.
Anyway, the second boy in Radiant Black. He literally, most of his outfit is like, you know, just regular clothes because he's existing in a regular world and he's just like sweatshirt, jeans in his character color scheme, essentially. But then when we get to the Radiant Black costume, that's where you get the really distinct costume going on. And I think that that's something to consider where you're like, okay, is this my character's main costume, or is it like, we already know who my character is. This is not an area where my character needs to be.
Yeah, well, you touched on something there that like I don't personally love, but it's effective, and it's clearly done because it's effective, is having superhero characters, even in very basic civilian clothes, color-coded. So like they still have their thing, like, it's Jason. He's gonna be wearing Jason Todd. He's gonna be wearing red. Or it's
I'm not gonna lie,
Grayson's gonna be wearing blue. You know, if it's Oliver Queen, he's gonna be wearing a green suit. You know, like the green suit on Oliver Queen, I think is an iconic example of this like constantly being a thing.
I love it,
but it's a common thing because it is that like easily recognizable thing, and it's effective. But yeah, that's kind of, there's always ways to take something more generic and make it kind of work for your character. But I do think the idea is, especially because I think because if we're speaking generally, which we are, most people are not going to be writing a superhero book.
For sure.
Most likely.
Yeah.
Thus, the odds that your character has a hero costume and a civilian costume, probably not that high. So your character's probably going to have their outfit. Yes. And so, if you were writing an action, a sci-fi, a western, more genres, I don't know, a serial killer book, I don't know, supernatural book, whatever the hell it is, if it's not something that is more like slice of life or like typical life, you're going to want that outfit, despite the fact that it's probably going to have to be some variation of civilian or military or whatever outfit. You're going to want it to have that personality to it.
Yeah. Yeah. So even with the more general, like, kind of generic costumes, they can make your character into your character. And like, if you think about, if you give a description to 3 different artists, they're going to spit out 3 different looking characters. And like you were saying with the different iterations of characters, you want to make sure that the things that you want to be there are represented there and like can be understood as like the way your character looks. Even if it's generic clothes.
Yeah, even if it's generic. But
now I would ask one more question, because I feel like this is, it kind of branches into what we talked about with Ollie. But we have talked about in general superheroes and their civvies. How do you feel about superhero costumes that are just like civilian clothes? Whether we're talking like Luke Cage, who is literally just wearing,
I was thinking of the hoodie, and
or something like when they put, do you remember at the end of the New 52 when they had that Superman who was just wearing a Superman t-shirt?
Oh, yes.
Or even like Superboy in his t-shirt. Or even like David Aja's Hawkeye, where he's like wearing a Hawkeye t-shirt and it's kind of his thing. What's your vibe on that? This is not necessarily advice, I'm just curious.
Depends on the story. Like, I like it for Superboy. I think it makes sense for Superboy. I dislike it more times than I like it. Especially when you are, because like, if it's a distinctive thing, like for your book, you know, and you're doing your own book and it makes sense, but like when you're plopping them in this universe full of a bunch of people who all wear these costumes, like, it feels weird sometimes, especially when like then they hop on a team and they're like around people who are wearing superhero outfits. Like, this is weird. Like, it works for Jessica Jones when she's you know, like in her own book, but then when she's like palling around with Daredevil, it's a little bit weird that Daredevil's wearing this like
right, like
costume.
It's making Daredevil look dumb.
Yeah, so like, especially when like you can do it in a way that's maybe interesting. If it's like, you know, if it's Jessica Jones and like Spider-Man, it's like, okay, yeah, Spider-Man inherently is a little bit more goofy than her and like takes is more fun. So like that dynamic works. When she's there with Daredevil, who's a character who takes himself very seriously and is like this like serious character, it makes him look goofy. So I think that when you're in this universe where it's like, this is how it works, you need a good reason. Like a Superboy thing where it's kind of a good reason, where it's like, oh, okay, he doesn't really feel comfortable, he's learning things, he's figuring things out. But then I think you do have to eventually get to the point where he does put on a suit or whatever, especially when he's constantly in a team. I don't know if, you know, he did have that solo book actually recently. Connor is very rarely on his own. You know, he's very typically thrust into something. And it's like the modern Raven doesn't really have an outfit a lot of the time. Like there's a lot of characters they kind of do that too. And I feel like a lot of times, especially in these team books or in these big universes, it kind of comes across as lazy. I'm not saying it is lazy, because obviously they're designing a lot of characters and doing a lot of stuff. But when then you have this whole team of characters and the one's just kind of like getting up off the couch and going, it feels lazy, even if it isn't.
And I feel like it's probably less of a thing with artists and probably more of, speaking specifically to like Marvel and DC, and more of a thing with like editorial, where it's like, okay, we have like a style book for this character. And no, you cannot redesign the character. Absolutely not.
I don't think DC and Marvel have style books anymore. Like, you will see books like at the same time where characters have vastly different designs. Or like they had like, I think the style guides were a big thing like through the 90s. I don't think they exist anymore at Marvel and DC.
That
like
is
characters
fair.
are redesigned and changing and different in books coming out at the same time now, constantly. I don't think it's a thing anymore.
You may be right. I am probably coming from a very biased source, where the character that I see like across books the most is Dick, and it's a
just got a new
little hard.
costume.
What?
He just got a new costume. Like, they've just been putting out images of his costume in the new arc.
Okay, that's not really a new costume though. That's like an
It
alternate
is,
costume, essentially. Okay, people keep saying it's a new costume. Just to die on this hill real quick. People keep saying that it's a new costume.
We've lost the plot so hard.
But he's going to a different area. That's not like his day-to-day superhero costume.
Yeah, but it's still a different costume just because
like it's a different outfit. It's not a different costume. But like to veer back and then eventually get us back.
But let me hit on one that I think will
sure,
coming out at literally the same time, main Titans book and the Titans one-shots. Raven has a completely different design in the Raven one-shot, and the Raven and the Titans book came out at the same time, in the same continuity, meant to be happening at roughly the same time, different design for the same character.
That is so fair. I don't remember what she looked like in honestly either of them.
In the one-shot, she has like
Titans.
Much more like she has.
Oh, did she have like a feathered thing?
Yeah, she had like a she had like a weird. Anyway.
But it's very hard to make Dick look totally different, so it's like, oh yeah, that's probably the.
Well, he also has the most basic, boring costume in comics. Yeah. And I will die on that hill. I hate the modern Nightwing costume with a passion. I love his gold, like his gold and blue costume from.
Yes,
I think that is amazing. We have talked about this
before. Bring that shit back.
Yeah, I hate his modern costume. I think it's the most boring costume in comics. The most boring costume for a character that I love. I think it's a lame costume. I'm sorry.
I will say, I think that there have been very good iterations of it. Like, we know that I love Bruno Redondo. And I think that he, stylistically, it works really well with his style. But, like, we've talked about this before. I think that Brett Booth makes his boring-ass costume look so good. And that's obviously, like, an artist thing rather than a design thing. It's still a boring-ass costume.
Like, can we talk about the Wally West Flash costume that is the greatest superhero costume ever designed?
It's so good. Like, it's so phenomenal.
What if a Flash costume, and like made it like his Kid Flash costume, so it's distinctively Wally. When we're gonna have another Flash at the same time, let's put this nice silver on it, and like I'm gonna constantly draw it with like the lines of his lightning, like meld with the lines of his costume. It's gonna look so good.
God, I love Brett Booth's art so much
for a comic book character ever. It's so good. I want a statue of that so bad.
And it would definitely have like the lightning shit. Oh my god.
Like, that's my top want list.
Todd McFarlane. Get on
it. A running Flash statue. And I will buy that thing and display it so proudly.
Are there any other honorable mentions you want to give for just really great character design?
No, but I'm gonna throw something to you. Like,
okay.
For us to do, because I think it's going to be fun. And why not do it on the podcast? Why not ask you to do it on the podcast when there's more pressure for you to say yes?
Oh, no.
Is based on this, I think we should do a bonus episode, maybe for this coming weekend.
Ooh.
We'll see if we do that. Where we, like, go into a randomizer or something to give us, like, a character, and then we design it together.
I am so down for that.
Stream, like, not on stream, but on recording.
Yes, yeah.
In real time. And people can see us design a character.
I would love to do that. I think that'd be so fun.
Whoa.
Keep an eye out, maybe this weekend. But that is going to take us to an end on our very silly creator corner today.
Yeah, we lost the plot there. There's going to be multiple cuts.
We'll
see how that goes.
There are.
Yeah.
But if you are not quite done consuming Script Heroes content, we put out a bonus episode last weekend, a Strange Saturday Super Show, where we talked about Madman, Volume 1, the iconic Mike Allred book. Like the Max, I think we were both kind of like shocked by how like deep it was and how cool it was.
This one I was a little bit more prepared for because I knew that this was like, I knew that there was like existentialism in this. I knew that was a thing that people had talked about with it. So I was a little bit less blindsided, but I was still blindsided by how well it was done with. I guess actually I was more blindsided by how goofy this was by like comparison. Like I thought this was gonna be more serious based on the way I heard people talk about it, but it was the seriousness embedded in such a goofy book. But it was so good.
And we had a lot of fun talking about it. So that bonus episode is up. And evidently maybe look out for this coming weekend where we design a character together.
Yeah, because I think that'll be a lot of fun.
I agree.
But of course we have a ton of polls for next week.
We have like 6 polls for next week.
Yeah, which is the most we've done in a while. We're gonna have to be more concise next week. We'll see if we pull that off. We have Ain't No Grave, number 2. We love number 1 of that book. Crocodile Black, number 2. We were very intrigued by the first issue of Crocodile Black, so very excited to see how that goes. Heart Piercer, number 2. We loved issue 1 of Heart Piercer. We have Monsters Are My Business and My Business Is Bloody, number 3, a series we've been super enjoying.
Yes.
Just a star-studded week next week. Morningstar, number 3, a series that we are loving.
And are super hyped for it to apparently gets.
Yeah.
I saw some tweets from Andrea and
I saw some
Tim
Tim Daniels.
I think both of them, and they're both like, "It's getting even weirder this week." And I'm like,
yeah. Yes, so excited for that. And then finally, we have a big 2 book. In case you only watch us for big 2, we have Sinister Sons, number 5.
With more Sinestro.
Yeah, we got Sinestro now, which is very cool.
It is.
But yeah, that'll be next week on Wednesday. If you don't watch the Strange Saturday Super Show, or hopefully maybe a bonus episode coming out this Saturday, we'll see. We will see you next week. Comic Geeks.
Is the regular Britney Spears one, but then if you do Duel of Fates, which is like the they get so conflated once I start doing them.